mellow. Yeah, I like to keep it mellow. I smoke and keep it mellow. I drink and keep it mellow. Every day I keep it mellow. Every day I keep it mellow.
What's going on, guys? It's Rico here, giving you guys a rundown of my Week 10 WBA match against Roliat, who's coaching the Jubilife City Jolteons. So first things first, if you didn't check out the team builder for this, I definitely recommend doing that. We basically break down my team, what I'm bringing, why I'm bringing it, the kind of matchup between my team and his team, and obviously I also run down his draft in full, so you can see what mons he's got and my predictions for what he was going to bring this game. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't already. Going into this match, I was pretty nervous. It was a big game because the outcome of this was basically going to decide whether or not I made playoffs. Not decide, but it was a really big factor in that, because going into this I was 6-3 and sitting 4th in the table with the top 4 making playoffs. We've only got 1 week left after this game, and Roliat, my opponent, is 5-4 going into this game, so he's right on my tail. If he wins, he's equal with me. So it's a huge game, the biggest game I've had in the league so far, I would say, because my goal at the start was to qualify for the playoffs. So winning this match was vital for me, really. He's got a really good draft. It's got some crazy strong offense, and it actually matches up pretty well against me, I think. He's got a couple of really fat mons that I struggle to take down, and some of his fast, hard-hitting mons I don't have a lot of answers for. Things like Abandoned Infernape really put some holes in my team, or like a Specs Gardevoir or a Scarf Gardevoir is the other thing. Things like that I just didn't have many answers for, so I was definitely nervous. Had a really tough time prepping against it, but I did what I thought was best. Brought the 6 that I've brought here, and I'm going to do my best to pick up the W, obviously. So let's jump right into this. On team preview, first thing, I was really happy to not see the Vaporeon, because that thing just was so hard for me to take down. The only kind of thing in my draft I had to hit it was Jolteon. And he had 2 ground types that Jolteon can do nothing to outside of HP fighting, which was doing like, I don't know, 30%, 40% maybe, with a life orb to them. So, and even outside of that, Jolteon just had a bad matchup, really. So I didn't want to bring Jolteon solely in case he brought Vaporeon, and outside of that, I really struggled to hit it for stab super effective damage. But obviously, first thing I saw was that he didn't bring it, so that was great for me. I was really pleased to not see that, because it makes my life a lot easier in terms of breaking his team down. He does have the Piloswine instead, because I basically predicted in my team builder that he would bring the first 5 you see there on the left. So Crook, Ape, Gardevoir, Gengar, and Mega Venusaur. And then the last one, I expected Vaporeon, but I kind of wasn't 100%. But he actually brings Piloswine, which is really nice for me, because I've got Special Victini specifically for that thing. Because it's obviously a lot more physically bulky than it is specially bulky. So I felt more confident once I'd seen his team preview than I did going into the match. And then I had to decide on a lead matchup. So I know from watching his replays that he has a habit of leading Gengar. But my gut in this match told me that he was leading Piloswine to try and get the rocks up straight away. So because of that, I've got Toxic on my Skarmory. So what I wanted to do was lead Skarmory to try and Toxic the Piloswine turn 1, but he actually leads Gengar. So I just need to go back to this. He leads Gengar, which is bad for me because I've got no special bulk at all, so anything he does is going to put a huge dent in my Skarmory straight away. So I have to switch out here. I would 100% have to switch out. So interestingly, he also switches out. So I don't know his full set there, but maybe he didn't think he had anything to hit me well enough with. He goes into Gardevoir, which I can't stay in on with my Golbat, because a Psychic or a Psyshock obviously just completely smacks me up. So I'm going to go into my Specs Sylveon here. Obviously, even with the Specs, it's still really bulky, so I was confident I could tank anything from Gardevoir and hit it back really, really hard with a Specs Hyper Voice, which he just has 0 switch-ins for, realistically. I mean, Gengar takes like 70%. Venusaur doesn't take a lot from it, but we've got Psyshock for that thing. So, on the switch though, he actually sets up a Calm Mind. And I just Hyper Voice to try and get as much damage on this thing as possible, but he Calm Minds again. Now at this point, I start running Calcs because a +2 Gardevoir was pretty strong, obviously. And I presumed he was going to have Psyshock, which to a 0 defense Sylveon does a shit ton at Okos at +2. And based on the amount of work that Stallone puts in against his team, I could not let this thing drop in like three turns in. Because I just presumed he would be Calm Mind, Psyshock, Hyper Voice, filler, like Energy Ball, Thunderbolt, something like that. So based on that, I have to switch out here because I can't let this thing die. So I choose what I thought was my least necessary member of the team here, which was Lucario, and I let it die. The other reason I did this was so that if he goes Calm Mind again, I can just Bullet Punch him and kill. But he actually attacks. He reveals that he doesn't have Psyshock, he has Psychic, which is great news for me because Psychic does maybe 50% or something, I think, to Sylveon as opposed to Psyshock, which Okos. So obviously my Lucario dies straight away, which is bad, but at least he doesn't have Psyshock, which could have just ran through my team at that point. So I Hyper Voice as he weirdly goes for the T-Bolt. So I'm not sure why he Thunderbolted there instead of Psychic. Whether he thought I was going to pull some kind of double or something, I don't know. Whether he was trying to catch the Skarmory or something, but I'm not sure. But I just Hyper Voice and managed to knock this thing out. Thank God I was a Spec Sylveon and managed to put that much pressure on him. And he goes into Gengar. I mean, he obviously is Sludge Waving here, so I go into my dedicated Gengar wall, which is my Found Mouth, because obviously he's not losing that mouth very easily. And based on the damage he does there, he gets a crit, which doesn't really matter, but 32%, I knew that was Specs damage, which is really, really good for me, because I was worried most about Scarfed Gengar. With the Specs, because I'm Scarf Victini, I can come in and revenge kill him whenever I want. Because obviously I outspeed him, whereas if he was Scarf, he would have outsped me. So that's really, really good news for me to have that info on him. Because he's locked in there, I know he's switching out, so I also double out here into my Birdala as he goes Piloswine, and I Toxic here, which was my plan, to try and get a Toxic on that thing. He goes Infernape. Unfortunately, I missed the Toxic, which does end up mattering a bit, but not particularly. Now this Infernape was one of the scariest members of his team in my opinion, because obviously it just gets so many different sets that it can run. I didn't know which it was going to be. I was most scared about a banded set because I just had 0 switch-ins. But my best attempt at switching was Victini. Obviously resists both of his stabs and is Scarfed with Psychic. So on the switch he reveals his Sword Stance, which I was pretty happy with, because I knew I could outspeed him with my Scarf at that point. So I Psychic next turn, thinking that I would probably just knock him out, but he hangs on with a Focus Sash, which is a really nice prep on his part. Sword Stance Focus Sash is really nice. So I was just waiting to see what move he goes for here, and he actually Sword Stances again, so whether he thought I'd over-predict and U-turn there, expecting him to switch out, not sure, but I was pretty happy with that he Sword Stances again, means he doesn't get any damage off on me that turn, and I can just Psychic again and knock this thing out. He does Mach Punch, which doesn't really do anything to be honest. So it's really nice to get that threat out, because that was one of his biggest threats in my opinion. So he goes into the Crook here, knowing that I'm locked into Psychic, Obviously, I was worried about the pursuit here, but there was nothing I could do about it. You know, like, I've not touched him with psychic, so I have to switch. And Risky doesn't have pursuit, and he actually doesn't. So that was really nice. I go into my dedicated wall for this crook, which is my bird Allah, my boy, and a +1 crunch, as you can see, is just not doing a lot really. I mean, it's doing under half to me. We get the Rocky Helmet chip and the Life Orb, which is really nice. Unfortunately, it gets the defense drop, which kind of sucked because it meant I couldn't stay in with this thing and just whittle him down. Because, you know, obviously without the defense drop, I live another roost back up, and he just keeps getting chipped. So that's kind of annoying, but I get the Toxic off here just to add up with that chip damage that I'm getting on him. I know here I either have to switch out or let this thing die. So I go into my Found Mouth just to sack it off, because once I knew the Gengar was specs and I could revenge it really easily with the Victini. I didn't think this thing had a huge amount of use, so I sack it off, let it go down to the crunch, and this thing's toxic and Life Orb damage is really racking up now, so I can just go into Victini and pick him off with a U-turn. Victini putting in even more work this game. He's done really well so far, got a couple of kills for me, so managed to get rid of the crook. And I just go into my Nidoking here because it hits the rest of his 3 mons pretty hard. I just get some damage on them. He goes into Piloswine here, so I just wanted damage on this thing because this is the biggest problem for my team now. Victini does just around half to it. So I just wanted to get damage off on this thing. I presumed he was going to knock me out with an Earthquake. I hoped he would overpredict and go Rocks and I could 2-hit KO him, but he doesn't. He just knocks me out. I get about half damage on him, which is nice, and he knocks me out with the Earthquake. But I was okay with that because it means I can go into Stallone and knock this thing out. He does get the Ice Shard, which was really nice because it put me under a lot more pressure, being at such a low amount of health. It meant he could go to Gengar free on this turn, and at this point I spent a really, really long time thinking about this play, because obviously something dies here. Basically with the Specs Gengar, something dies. I just was trying to decide whether it was best to sack this Sylveon or the Skarmory based on what the Mega Venusaur was going to do, because I knew that this Gengar was killing something and I can just go into Victini for free and revenge him. But I also then needed something to hit the Venusaur best if Victini couldn't finish him off. So I ran a few calcs and that sort of thing and tried to figure out what moves I thought the Venusaur would have. But I ended up deciding simply that Specs Psyshock from Stallone did like 50 to 60 to the Venusaur, and Brave Bird from Skarmory did like 40 to 50. So I decided to keep Sylveon alive for the extra damage output, and also because of the fact that I actually speed crept it to try and outspeed the Venusaur. So I just let him take out Skarmory here with a Shadow Ball, and obviously now I go Victini and I can revenge that kill this thing with my Scarf Psychic, which is just putting in a crazy amount of work. It was really nice bringing this game in the end. I was really pleased. So now it comes down to what moves he has on Venusaur. I was obviously most worried about him having Earthquake. I knew Psychic wasn't going to OHKO. I knew it was going to do kind of somewhere around half, depending on what set he was. My one play is to stay in and click Psychic, which I do, and it does about 60%, so really nice damage. And he goes for a big old Outrage. So that's definitely not something I've seen before. Outrage Venusaur, new meta maybe. Probably be running all over OU anytime soon. But whether he had some sort of specific role for this Venusaur, I'm guessing. Because he did tell me this set, it was Outrage, Petal, is it Petal Blizzard, Petal Dance? I can't remember which one it is. One of the two. Leech Seed and what was the last move? Was it Toxic or something? I don't think it was Toxic. I can't remember now. But yeah, so I'm guessing he had something specific in mind, whether it was because he thought I was going to bring a bulky Hydreigon to take this thing on and he wanted to be able to outrage it. Something like that, I don't know, there must have been something. But yeah, outrage Venusaur, which was really interesting to see. So obviously I just stayed with my Victini and Psychic for the win. I didn't outrage Victini. That would be nice tech. Maybe I should look into that. Try and breed a Victini with outrage. But so we managed to knock him out with a Psychic and pick up the 2-0, which was really awesome. Really pleased to get a 2-0 win here because of the importance of the match and what effect it would have on the leaderboard. It was just such a big game, and against a quality player like Roliat, he's got a good record, so he's obviously a good player, and against a really quality draft as well. I think I played quite well in this game. A couple of misplays at the start based around the Gardevoir predictions. I presumed you would have Psyshock. And with hindsight, I shouldn't have let Lucario die there, because Lucario was, if he spiraled out of control with those Calm Minds, Lucario was the only way of guaranteed killing it with a Bullet Punch. So that was definitely a misplay. At the time I was really shit myself, because I was like, oh, holy fuck, do I just lose to this thing with the Psyshock? And I definitely panicked, and I was like, fuck, sack Lucario. So that was a misplay. Overall, I think I played pretty well. Brought a good team against Simscarf. Victini put in loads of work. Specs, Sylveon put in loads of work. So thanks to Neons for helping me out with that one. I think I said that about 17 times in the team builder, but I do mean it. It's definitely helped me out a lot. So that puts us in a pretty solid position for playoffs now. We're 7-3 after that win. So I feel, I don't want to jinx it obviously or speak too soon, but I do feel fairly confident that we will make playoffs now, and the Cardiff Camerupts will be fighting it out for the title. So it obviously depends on my last match, which is next week. But if I can get a W there, that seals me. If I win there, then I'm definitely in. If I lose, it obviously goes down to other people's results, but I think I still will have a good chance. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me, guys. Make sure to keep checking back or hit the subscribe button, because there's going to be a really big few weeks coming up, obviously, for the Camerupts, with next week's battle deciding whether or not I make the playoffs, and then if I do, then we've got the playoffs after that, which will be really hype. And also in the other league that I'm in, the FBL, got some big games coming up there. So and also a kind of run at the playoffs in that league as well. So definitely keep checking back, watching the videos, and keeping up with how the Camerupts are doing. Thank you very much for your support, and I'll see you next time.